Centrosaurines. Hello again, guys. This is me, and yeah, I guess I need to use glasses now because I am really blind. Last time I was like struggling to like read the tier list on all, and yeah, better use glasses now. But anyway, we're talking about Centrosaurines today. It's a group inside a Ceratopsia, and it's closely related to Triceratops. One of the most famous dinosaurs around. Ceratopsians, you know them. Huge frills, huge horns, bosses, stocky bodies, short tails, and stout limbs. However, the cool thing about ceratopsian dinosaurs is that their skulls are so different between them, like insanely different. That's why maybe ceratopsians might be my favorite group of dinosaurs. It's just the amount of variability between them is insane, and we're gonna see that right now. And we're definitely gonna be ranking them in how much I like each one of them, like their skulls and how different they are from the more normal looking ones. So we're gonna see some weird ass ones. So Nasutoceratops. Okay, so we're gonna start with Nasutoceratops here. A fairly new, well, not very new, but newishly described ceratopsian. You might have seen him in one of the new Jurassic World movies. Not greatly portrayed, but it's not one of the worst designs there, obviously. But Nasutoceratops, it's kind of interesting. One of its most well-known features, or something you might see right away, is those brow horns, which are so weird. I actually have a little figure here to show you. So if you can see, the brow horns can have the same orientation as some cattle that you see today. Like cattle today has that like four pointing, curved, a little bit upwards, kind of horns right above the eyes, and it's crazy how it kind of resembles that. I don't know if it's like convergence. I mean, it's definitely convergence, but I don't know what kind of benefits does that bring to like the animal, I guess. So you can see the horns, and you can see the big boss that has for a mouth. That big boss is very characteristic of Centrosaurine dinosaurs, ceratopsians. And for the rest, I mean, the frill also very short and not very ornamented, which is weird for Centrosaurines, because they usually have all these spikes and stuff, but the Ceratops is fairly normal actually. Nothing crazy going with the frill. Pretty short too. That is characteristic of Centrosaurines, but those horns are definitely doing the heavy lifting for the tier list. So I want to say Nasutoceratops. Nasutoceratops is going to be, I want to say B tier. I want to throw it in A, but I'm gonna put it in A tier. I really like it. There's nothing crazy going with the frill, but definitely the horns and the size is it's pushing it to A. It's pushing it to A, definitely. Diabloceratops. Okay, so now we're moving on to Diabloceratops. So Diabloceratops it diverged early in the ceratopsian tree, and actually I forgot to mention that with Nasuto, also early divergent. I believe that's why it doesn't have them crazy ornamentations. However, if you look at Diabloceratops, you can definitely see that ornamentation going absolutely insane. It has kind of a triangular frill, a little flat on the top, but you can see the two upward pointing frill spikes. Kind of insane. You have the two normal brow horns just pointing to the front, and the little boss. You can see the boss actually as well, semicircular. So Diabloceratops, I like this skull. It's kind of going kind of weird, but I kind of like it. It is also very short, as you can see. These frills look big, but it's only because of the spikes. The spikes do a lot of heavy lifting for as an ornamentation, and you might think, oh, what was it using for? Well, It's most likely not for self-defense. Those things would break really easily. And when I say break easily, it's not like it's not like it's gonna touch it and it's gonna break. But if you try to stab like a huge predator with it, or just hit like another ceratopsian, with those horns, they'll probably break under a lot of stress. So definitely not for that. So it was probably more towards sexual display. Yes, a lot of these are just for showing off, which is what drives these animals to have such crazy ornamentations on their heads. So for Diabloceratops, I'm gonna give it a B tier. I like Diabloceratops. One thing I didn't mention too, it's really small. Styracosaurus. Okay, so we're gonna move on to a very famous genus, Styracosaurus. Who hasn't heard of Styracosaurus before? You see those frill spikes? It's definitely gonna be Styracosaurus. So Styrac actually has a crazy history. It's one of the first ceratopsians ever described as well. That nose horn is definitely gonna be your go-tell. Like you're gonna know it when you see it. So you have Styracosaurus here, insane nasal horn, has some little ossifications on top of the eyes, but yeah, the real show stealer are those insane frill spikes. You see, the great thing about Styracosaurus actually, as well, is that the amount of individual variation that we found is insane. What do I mean by that? These spikes, they vary in where they point, or the size, or like how thick, or like how long will they protrude from the actual frill. Like we found so many of them. We actually named a couple genuses like differently than Styracosaurus, and then found out, oh no, this is just Styracosaurus, but with some weird spikes pointing like I don't know where. So Styracosaurus is an awesome dino. Is probably the second most recognized dinosaur as well. It actually showed up in Disney's Dinosaur 2, if you've seen that, And yeah, just I love Styracosaurus. Easily recognizable. That nasal horn is insane. Like that could go so high. And the Rubiosaurus, which is the other genius that I was talking about, that it was, I believe it was thought to be another genus, but they just saw like, oh no, this is just a really long horn, Styracosaurus. And Styracosaurus is great, such a great dino. I don't know if it's my favorite, but it's definitely gonna go in A tier. And you know what? I gave Nasutoceratops a lot of too much credit, so it's gonna bump it out to B tier. Centrosaurus. Okay, so we move to the namesake of this subfamily, Centrosaurus. Okay, so what do we say about Centrosaurus? Another of the OG dinosaurs, OG ceratopsians, because well, this whole group is like named after it. So we can see the diagnostic, one horn, one nose horn, and the the epoccipitals on the frills, on the frill. It has two little epoccipitals, like protruding like in front, like towards its nose, and that's like a little another way that you can recognize Centrosaurus from other Centrosaurines. I've said Centrosaurus a lot, I know, but yeah, Centrosaurus is great. The fossil material is insane for Centrosaurus. We found bone beds. What do I mean with bone beds? A ton of Centrosaurus were found together, dead. Now you would think, oh yeah, they were probably doing a last stand, dying with honor or something like that. Probably not. It probably died in what we call that flash flood. So they probably all fell down a river while it was like flooding, and they tragically all must have died there. This was in the dinosaur park formation, so he might have lived with Diabloceratops as well. That's for another video. And yeah, Centrosaurus, a great genus, iconic for its name as well. So I think Does it deserve A tier? Does it deserve A tier? I think I'm gonna put it on B tier, not A tier yet. And B tier is getting a little crowded, so Diabloceratops is gonna go C tier. I like Diabloceratops, but not as much as these two guys. Einiosaurus. So I'm gonna be talking about probably one of my favorite ceratopsians. Einiosaurus also lived in with Diabloceratops, so he had to fight for his life. However, you might think, oh, with the horns, it might have a chance. What's gonna mess with it, brother? Have you seen the Einiosaurus horn? That thing curves downwards, which is crazy. It's one of the craziest looking nose horns for any animal, because you would think those would be for defense, but this is where the hypothesis for ceratopsian frills and horns come into the conversation, because there's no actual use for a horn pointing downwards for defense. Same with the two epoxipitals, which are really long as well. Probably, I don't have a Einiosaurus figure. That's such a shame. I'm still waiting for one. But you see these horns too. This too. Einiosaurus had these, but pointing to the back more so than Diabloceratops. And I think that's why I love Einiosaurus so much. That horn is so characteristic. It's so weird, and probably was using it to, attract mates or, showing off to other rivals, as a means of intimidation and stuff. So, I don't know, what is it about Einiosaurus? It's not very big as well. That's the thing, is one of the smaller ones. But I love Einiosaurus so much, so this is going to be bias. Totally bias. But Einiosaurus is S tier. Sinoceratops. Okay, guys, so moving right along, we got Sinoceratops. So this is one of the more basal ones of Centrosaurinae. And, if you see Sinoceratops, you might think it's not very amusing, Those epoxipitals are the frill spikes. They're kind of cool, I guess. They kind of protrude a little forward, which is kind of weird, kind of cool, Has a single horn, kind of like Styracosaurus, but pointing more towards itself, curving inwards. The thing with Sinoceratops, and the interesting thing about it, is that it's one of the only ceratopsians not found in North America. Almost any ceratopsians that you can think of it probably lived in North America, in the western part, called Laramidia. So what Sinoceratops name means, Sinoceratops, is horn face from China. So yes, this is a ceratopsian, very derived ceratopsian from China, which was unheard of before. So I think there's just broads, like Sinoceratops works as a to broaden, helps broaden our understanding, of ceratopsian geography and where they lived and where they might have come from, originated to. So Sinoceratops actually has a lot of importance because of that. However, it's not gonna save it. The way I see it, Sinoceratops, you are just a less cooler looking Styracosaurus. So that's gonna send you right back to C tier. Lokiceratops. Okay, so you might be thinking, why Lokiceratops? So Lokiceratops is a very new genus, described only last year. And it actually helped create a new little group of dinosaurs inside Centrosaurinae, which are the Albertosaurinae, which, yes, they lived in Alberta, in the Judith River Formation. And you might be thinking, why Lokiceratops and not, for example, its most closest relatives, Medusaceratops and Albertoceratops? So Lokiceratops, aside from being really new, only last year, it presents one of the coolest and craziest ways where we can see ceratopsians frills going into a asymmetric form. So yes, I have a Lokiceratops figure. As you can see, most animals would be bilaterally asymmetric. You're seeing from your right to your left. However, the frill, as you can see right here, was different. Like this side was way different than the left side, which is unheard of. You might see the individual variation on Styracosaurus that we talked about, but they were kind of the same from this side to the other side. It's just they were different from individuals. However, this one is different in the same animal, which is insane. They had this blade-like epoccipitals to the side. They looked a lot like the Albertoceratops and Medusaceratops. That's why they fall into the same clade. But Lokiceratops is crazy because it does have that crazy frill. It's insane. I love it. Also, it was found out Lokiceratops is one of the biggest Centrosaurines as well. As I said earlier, like at the beginning, Centrosaurines compared to Chasmosaurines, yes, there's a video on Chasmosaurus coming. They are relatively comparatively smaller than their cousins. However, Lokiceratops was a little too big for its family. So Lokiceratops, I love it. Also love this name, Lokiceratops, the horn-faced Loki. Kind of going a little crazy with the name, but it's cool. And Lokiceratops is gonna be an A tier. I like the balanced A tier. We have one of the oldest ones in Styracosaurus, and we have the newest one, Pachyrhinosaurus. Guys, we're gonna end this tier list with, which might be not only one of the most famous two, but probably my favorite Centrosaurine or ceratopsid in general, Pachyrhinosaurus. Pachyrhinosaurus is a Centrosaurine dinosaur. As you can see right here, you might be thinking, oh my god, this is Centrosaurine. Where are its horns? That's the cool thing. It did not have horns. It had this big boss on top of its nose. Huge boss. Which it probably used to, do some shoving matches with other Pachyrhinosauruses. And frill, also really small, fairly short. It had this weird little epoccipitals here, pointing outwards and inwards. And for this species, yes, Pachyrhinosaurus is so abundant that we found 3 different species we can name: Paratorum, canadensis, and Lacustae, which is this one I have here. Lacustae is very well known for having those 3 spikes connecting like on top of its eyes right there. You can see them. Pachyrhinosaurus is an awesome dino. We've also found a ton of them. And one of the largest Centrosaurines. It lived in Alberta, but way on the north. This one is one of those dinosaurs that a lot of speculation has been thrown around about either they had like a coat of, like what we would call feathers. Although for ceratopsians, it's really not found. We found a lot of skin impressions on different ceratopsian genuses. And there's no signs of filaments or quills as they've been found in very early ceratopsia. But for like very derived disc ones, the late Cretaceous ones, not really. And Pachyrhinosaurus, probably because of their massive size, that's the way probably, it was their way of countering the extreme cold that they were probably used to. They have also shown up in a ton of stuff. Pachyrhinosaurus, one of the most popular ones. You've seen him in the infamous Jurassic Fight Club, where it was portrayed with a horn. That is sacrilege. Do not ever put a horn on top of Pachyrhinosaurus' nose. That is not it. It has a boss. a big boss. He is the big boss. It also showed up in Prehistoric Planet recently. Awesome depiction. Finding Nasutoceratops. Also see the Tyrannosaur video that's coming. But no, yeah, I love Pachyrhinosaurus. He's awesome. He's cool. He has a lot of species. And it doesn't need a horn to be cool. It's a definite S tier. So, with that, we have our Centrosaurinae tier list. Thank you so much, guys, for watching. Tell me, where would you change it? Where do you would put your Centrosaurians? I obviously skipped a lot of Centrosaurus. There's a lot more, but, these are, like, the ones I wanted to talk about. And if you have a different list, let me know. And just like, subscribe, do whatever you like. Thank you so much, guys.